Hey there everybody. I had promised in a previous video show you how to build a fire or start fire with flint, not just tell you that you could use flint to start fire, but how to do it. I'm going to show you my technique and some things to know when you're building a fire. And I'm doing this as if you know nothing about fire, okay? So forgive the very detailed basic information, but not everybody knows that, so that's why I'm doing it. All right, so the thing to know and things to consider, you know, when you're building a fire and you know, maintaining it, safety is got to be important, right? So don't build a fire in the middle of a very dry, grassy, high debris, you know, woody debris, leaves and all that. If you're going to build a fire, you want to do it somewhere where you don't have to worry about it spreading from where you started it. And you really should try and avoid doing it on a windy day. Obviously, in a survival situation, you may have no choice, and if it's in the winter time, it's not as critical. But just to be safe for those of you watching who may not know, make sure you're very careful about where you're starting the fire. You know, if you're at home and you're practicing, you don't want to do it by you know, flammable things that produce gases. You know, don't do it by a gas can. Just, you know, hopefully you have common sense and you use that, and you don't start your fire near things that can burn. Okay, give yourself lots of space. The typical distance is, you know, 10 feet. You want 10 feet round of mineral soil ground where your fire is going to be, your campfire. And you're going to want to start your fire in the space that you have designated as your campfire. You don't want to be moving it. It should be where you're going to be. Okay, so now I'm going to just flip the camera around and kind of show you what I'm talking about as far as the materials, and also so that I can see what the camera's looking at. And then when I get into building the fire, showing you how to strike the flint to build the fire, I'll set the camera down so it's just watching me do it, and I'll narrate while I'm doing that. Okay, so the first thing you should do with this information that I give you is practice what I tell you. And what I mean by practicing is doing it, and doing it before you need it. Like, don't take this video, make a note of it, and then think you're going to be able to do it in an emergency situation. Okay? You want to practice. You want to actually do it in real life so that you're familiar with having done it. And you should do it multiple times, okay? All right, again, follow safety protocols. Be safe. Don't start a fire that's going to burn the neighborhood down or the forest down, okay? All right, so now here's our materials. We have a box cutter, I've got some steel wool, and I've got my flint rod. I've also gathered some fire starting materials, very fine material and coarse material. And the reason for that is I can show you the different techniques for getting the fire started. Another thing, you want to build a fire pit before you try to start the fire. And you want to build that fire pit in the area that you plan on having the fire. So you want to take rocks such as these and put them in a circle, a decent sized circle that would accommodate a fire. There's a few reasons you want those rocks to be in a ring. You can do it in a square, and build up a decent amount of rock, a rock wall. okay, an enclosed rock wall in either a circle or a square. And the reason you do that is, one, it provides wind protection for your fire as you're starting it and keeping it going. Two, it keeps the fire from just rolling out and getting out of your controlled area. And three, the rocks actually provide a raised surface that you can put, you know, something on, say a, you know, if you can find some metal or whatever, you know, like a barbecue grate, whatever, and you can put that on the rock, so it provides kind of a surface to put things onto. Now, what I want to highlight here is I've got two different rocks, and you'll notice one is jagged and sharp and the other is round. And the reason I have those picked out is that I want you to understand the safety aspect. When you're building your campfire space, you need to realize that even the rocks that you choose are important. Rounded rock is usually rock that has been in water. The water has rounded it from beating against it, other rocks, it rolling. And rocks, believe it or not, can actually hold water in them. So you never want to have your campfire pit built with round rocks. You always want to use jagged, sharp, flat rock, not rounded. And the reason for that is that when the fire burns and heats the rocks up, they'll get to a point to where they're super hot, and the water that's trapped inside that round rock potentially will actually make the rock explode and injure you, or, you know, explode your fire out into directions and start a fire. So whenever you build your fire pit, always use flat, jagged, non-round rock. Okay, that's an important safety tip. All right, so now let's get into the fire building process. Okay, now, like I said, I'll edit a lot of this out. So the first fire we'll try and start is, we're assuming that we can get fine fibrous material to accept the spark and ignite. And so you want it as fine as possible, because it will ignite a little easier. Now, the technique, you'll see a lot of people who will hold the flint with their knife and they strike to try and make the sparks. Well, this causes a lot of, you know, problems as far as directing the spark. It also moves the material you're trying to ignite. I don't find it to be as beneficial to starting the fire as actually using the flint, holding the striking item solid and pulling the flint through it. There we go. Okay, so now we've started our fire. Now, another way you can start a fire with material that isn't quite as fibrous, and I'm using this as an example so that you can see that this is steel wool. Now, this is double O steel wool. This is not even the finest steel wool that they make. This makes a great fire starter for thicker materials like this. Okay, so again, same striking technique. Now blow. And there we go. Okay, so there you have a couple of ways you can start fire using a flint. Just to recap, it's actually better to pull the flint through the metal that you're striking rather than striking the flint. It works much better. And you want to make sure to understand that like steel wool is very sensitive to moisture. So if you're packing that with your Flint to help you start fires, make sure that you keep it in like a Ziploc baggie, because it's steel and it's so fine. It's very, very sensitive to moisture and will rust quickly, and that makes it harder to get it to burn. Now, I showed you how to get the basic flame going, right? When you're building a fire, you need to have all the materials you need for your fire handy and ready. And again, like I said, when I started that fire, I would have built my pit already, and when I would have started it within that pit. And then, so you saw I had grass as my burning material. You would want to have small sticks, you know, twigs, and then thicker twigs and thicker twigs until, you know, you're finally up to decent size pieces of wood, and you want to work your way up, right? So you get the grass going, you put some very small twigs on there, and you don't want to just pile them on there, because then you'll starve it for air and put it out. So you kind of, you know, build like a little teepee over the top of it. You know, you can stack the twigs on there any way you want, just so long as you keep in mind that you want air to be able to flow through. So you need to leave gaps between the sticks, right? You need to let air be able to flow through that, and you continue that same pattern, increasing the size of the sticks as you go. I will do another video later, I'm trying to keep these short, that will tell you some ways of getting material to burn during wet times when it's not dry like it is now and grass is readily available and dry. You know, you run off into the mountains in the winter time, it's a little bit harder to find that dry material, but it is there, and I'll show you where to look for that. All right, hope this is helpful. We'll catch you next time.